Hi, Dr. Jim Terrell here, and this is an encapsulation of this last Sunday's talk, May 2nd, Turning Difficult Times into Opportunities. The primary points that I made in this talk yesterday was that the tendency for most people in difficult times is to focus on the smallness of their life rather than the greater opportunities that present themselves even in the difficulties. So the tendency is to turn the difficulty into reality and fail to connect to the spiritual side of who we are, in part because there's that piece of us, that emotional piece of us, which is locked into a very narrow range of responses when things are in flux or they're changing. So as a matter of fact, the more they change, the more they're in flux, the tendency is to constrict our behavior rather than open it up. So it seems counterintuitive to want to open oneself up in difficult times. The tendency is to withdraw, constrain, and constrict oneself to try and protect one's survival. Yet if you know that God is your source, you're never worried about that aspect of it, because you know that God is always providing you another opportunity to practice principle. So those principles include seeing the reality for what it is. Now, one of the reasons that we can't see what's right before us is because emotionally we're glazed over with a lot of unexpressed grief. And I talked very specifically about the need to grieve the passings of things. And difficult times, as a matter of fact, always bring the opportunity up for that grief to express itself. So grieving the difficulties many times that have been emotionally stored, stuffed, suppressed into our subjective or subconscious mind is extraordinarily important. So that means that sometimes, even if you just rented a sad movie and just sat down and let yourself feel that emotion to come out and just let it pass. Now, of course, you might cry, you might be depressed for a while, but let it pass. And then as it passes, what you want to do is to be able to put in its place a greater faith, a greater sense of productivity in your sense of faith. So one of the things that I said was, it's not a magic trick, but it is an illusion that's going on inside of you when you let those emotions cover you up. And Ralph Waldo Emerson said that you have to break with your God of tradition and cease from your God of rhetoric so that God may fire your heart in the present. So that means that tradition, those traditions that we have fallen back on when times get tough, many times they don't come through for us. So we have to break with tradition, and we have to start off on a new creative tack, a new creative idea of ourselves. And we have to have confidence that that creative idea will not only function by means of us, but produce the result that will help us grow. Not necessarily find relief, but help us grow. That helps us open up that pathway through which the source can function and work. Also, we have to stop telling the story over and over again. That rhetoric that tends to tie us down to things. And so the rhetorical argument has to be really looked at carefully, this story that we tell ourselves about things, so that we can free ourselves from those who may either be telling stories about us or telling stories of themselves. We need to free ourselves from the story, whatever case may be. So the rhetoric, we got to cease with the rhetoric, break the tradition, and then God can fire our hearts. I know that's how you can create this opportunity to grow. And growth is not just spiritually, but economically too. And the minute you do that, and you'll start to feel this law of attraction pulling to you everything necessary for your highest and greatest good. I guarantee that that's the way it'll work. But to do that, you need to keep practicing your prayers, and I'm going to do a prayer for you in just a moment that will help free you of that emotional restriction and constraint and limitation, and open your heart up so that you can have more good in your life than ever before. So let's go into that prayer right now. Know with me, Spirit's presence not only manifests a greater truth, Spirit's presence is the greater truth, manifesting by means of that which it creates. Spirit's presence created me, created you, created all of us so that we could know life and know it abundantly and richly and productively. So I speak my word for you. I know right now that your heart and your mind We're so open and receptive and allowing whatever needs to be released, and whatever needs to be received. And as we receive that greater good, we let go of any misconception that there is anything in our life that's imperfect. Always the perfection of God's love is moving by means of us animating exactly what we need to see. Because we know that is the truth, we can see right through any difficulty and see God's presence, God's magnificence now, not only dispelling but dissolving anything that would resist our highest and greatest good. I know that's true right here, right now, and as it just disappears, great good flows to you from that source, which is always the source of your good, which is God. So I give great thanks for that truth, and as I let it go, the truth is now made manifest as your flesh, my flesh, our world, this world. That's the truth, and so it is. Amen.